back to Matt's Automotive channel. This is the second video on the 97 Kia Sportage. In the first video, we ended up pulling the cylinder head off the car there because we were told that it would likely had some valve problems, valve train issues. And lo and behold, we pulled it off, and the cylinder head had no valves in it, no springs, no bucket lifters, nothing. It was kind of stripped. And apparently the previous owner just kind of put it back together without all the parts and kind of just gave up on it. So rather than rebuilding the old head and getting all the parts individually, which would have been quite expensive, ended up just ordering a new remanufactured head. Haven't opened this up yet. We had to wait a couple weeks for it to show up, but it's here. So anyway, let's go ahead and delve into this and get this box open up and see exactly what we have. Well, this sucker weighs over 53 pounds. A lot of weight. Okay, now with this remanufactured head, they want to send back the original one for the core. This looks pretty good, looks pretty clean. They got some information here. All right, let's look at this caution label here. Inspect the unit for correct application by matching it with the head you are replacing. Check for shipping and handling damages prior to installation. A heat shrink, which melts at 255 to 260 degrees Fahrenheit, is installed on this head. A missing or damaged heat shrink voids the warranty. Cam seals must be installed by installer. Adjustable rockers must be adjusted. And on the back side here, a damaged cylinder head is the result of a problem. Failure to correct the original problem will result in damage to the replacement unit. All right, here's the invoice. You can see we paid $580 for it. It's for a Kia Sportage 2.0 dual overhead cam. And please return core within 30 days so as to not be charged $300 per head. Okay, so really the first thing we need to do is just compare these, make sure that they're the same. Transfer anything over from this head to this head that doesn't come with this head. And then we need to get this thing in the mail as soon as possible so we can avoid any kind of fees with the core. So let's get started. Okay, with the new head, the very first thing that I want to check is for the flatness of the head. Not only the bottom side where the head gasket resides, but also the top. And the reason being, oftentimes when these heads warp, the whole thing warps. And of course, if you have a dual overhead cam, these journals will no longer line up properly, and you get a lot of turning resistance here on these cams, which is not good. And so oftentimes what happens is, you know, the head gets warped, the top part gets warped as well, but only the bottom part gets machined. And that leaves a problem with the alignment of these journals, and these cams can be very difficult to turn and cause additional resistance and other problems. Okay, I got my straight edge here. This is good to 1/1000th of an inch, and I got my filler gauge here using the smallest one, which is 1.5 thousandths of an inch. So let's go ahead and set it on here, see if there's any kind of warpage on the top. Filler resistance there. Low resistance there. Looks like it was definitely recently machined. Okay. Resistance there. Yep. 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 This looks good. I'm going to crisscross pattern here too. I'm thinking this is pretty darn good. Yeah, this is very flat. If it was warped, you'd be able to slide this out from under the straight edge in one of these positions. And it doesn't matter how I set this on here, it's perfectly flat. All right, so this looks good. Yeah, really cleaned up, the valves look good. When we get the head onto the block, we'll go ahead and do a quick leak down just to make sure that the valves are sealing real well. And anyway, the head that we just recently pulled off, this is how it was. I pulled the caps off, removed the cams, and that's what was underneath. Absolutely nothing. There were no valves, no springs, no keepers, no bucket lifters, absolutely nothing. We'll go ahead and transfer everything over from this old one over to the new one that we need to. I see a couple things already that we need. These couple bolts that hold the timing belt cover on, and these studs here will need to be transferred over, because as you can see, they don't exist here on the new one. Okay, in order to extract these, I'm going to need to get 2 nuts with the proper thread and jam them together, and then take the inner one and then start twisting out, and hopefully we can just pull these out. I got my thread checker here, and it looks like what we're dealing with here is an M10 by 1.25 thread pitch. All right, I put 2 nuts on here and jammed them together, and now we should be able to just back the stud out using the inner nut here. There we go. Oh, that was easy. No problemo. And we'll do the same for this one. Now this one's not coming out nearly as easy, so we're just gonna hit it with some good old-fashioned heat. Okay, let's give it a shot now. There we go. Just needed a little heat. Okay, we got our studs all cleaned up, so we got them removed from the old head, so let's go ahead and move them over to the new head. Okay, there are some bolts in these 4 holes that hold on the timing belt cover. Then one over here on the side, and we got those transferred over now. Now, looks like we need to move over the studs. Over here on the intake side, we're missing a few. Let's see, looks like we're missing 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's see, how are we on the exhaust side? Looks like we're okay there. So hopefully we can extract those with no problem. Now these exhaust studs here have a fair amount of rust on them, so my hunch is they're probably rusted in there pretty good. We're probably gonna have to hit them with heat, but I'm gonna use the same method where I just put 2 nuts on here, bind them together, and then try to twist it out. I'm gonna put a little bit of WD-40 on these first to help extract these. Okay, let's try trimming. Oh, easy. God, I hope they're all like this. This one's coming out with no problem whatsoever. The rest of the exhaust header studs came out with relatively no issue. Got them all transferred over here. We're still missing half the nuts that go on there. Also cleaned and transferred this hook and moved over to the new head. Now we just need to do the same for the intake studs. However, we're missing half of them. And I'm thinking, since I'm gonna order some new ones anyway, maybe I'll just order a whole new set and then just leave these in here. Next, we need to transfer this block-off plate over to the new head. It looks pretty nasty. And you pull these studs out, move them over. I'll use the same technique and put 2 nuts on here, jam them together, and then twist it off. Okay, now hopefully we can just unthread the whole stud here. Well, it's being stubborn, and like all stubborn bolts, it's gonna need some heat. All right, looks like she's coming now. There we go. All right, this second one's coming out a lot easier. We didn't need to apply any heat to this one. All right, I believe we have everything transferred over from the old head to the new head. Gonna need a few extra things like some new gaskets and of course some of the missing studs and nuts. But other than that, I think we're about ready. All right, now with the studs transferred over, we can put on our new gasket, plate, and nuts. Okay, got the new cam position sensor installed. I got the plates transferred over with the new gaskets that came with my gasket kit. I've taken apart and cleaned up this intake manifold a little bit better, hit it with a bunch of brake cleaning, got the grease off, took the fuel rail off and the injectors. And one of the problems I found with one of the injectors is the vent tubes, that you can pass air through all of them with the exception of one. So I don't know if it is stuck or not. So anyway, I'm gonna hook up my fuel injector tester here and try to clean these out and see how much we can pass through these injectors and see if they're all operating about the same. The other thing is the EGR valve here. I noticed that it is broken, as you can see. It's come apart right here. And obviously it's not gonna work, so I'm either gonna have to get a new one of these or somehow secure this back down, either weld it down or glue it or something. Also, when I took this EGR valve off, I noticed this plate here. It's not a gasket, it's just a block-off plate. So apparently at some point, somebody decided they didn't want the EGR. Maybe when that broke, I don't know, but anyway, they blocked it off. Took the fuel rail here and cleaned it up really well. And I guess the next thing to check here is the injectors. So let's see if these are all operational. Okay, the first thing I want to do is just make sure that I can hear these injectors operating. And let's just test all of them. So anyway, I got it set on 3 here, which is long. And we'll go ahead and hit the pulse. That one seems to work. Here's the next one. Next. And this is the one here that I cannot pass any air through the vent tube, so let's see if that one works. Okay, here's the last one. Okay, so I have a very crude system here. I'm not going to be passing any cleaner or anything through this. I won't be able to check the spray pattern, but this is very simple and easy. So I got my fuel injector tester here. I'm going to put it in mode 4, which is continuous operation. And I got a little bit of air pressure here. So I just want to see if I can pump air through here and then feel it come through on the other side. So you can hear it pulsing there. So now I'll apply a little bit of pressure. And yep, actually I can see a little bit of stuff coming through there. And I can definitely feel it. So and you can hear the note change. So it is working. And if we just turn this off, we should not be able to pass anything through it. And nope, there's no air pressure there at all. So this injector seems to be working. Let's do the same on all the others. All right, here goes the next one. Power this back up, go to continuous. I can hear it popping there. I can hear it pulsating, and let's see if we can push anything through. Yep. In fact, I got a little bit of fuel on my finger, so it's definitely passing fuel. So it is working. And disconnect the power. See if anything comes through now. And no air at all. So it's working. Okay, let me show you what I was talking about with the vent tubes here. I'll take a good injector here and then push air through the vent tube, and I can hear it coming through and it's coming out right here. It's actually a fair amount of air. But on this bad one here, nothing at all. So I don't think it's gonna hurt the performance of the injector itself. I got all this cleaned up. I sprayed the fuel rail out. I don't want any dirt to get into it, so I'm gonna put the injectors back in right now and cap this feed line off as to prevent any debris or dirt from getting into the system. It wouldn't take much dirt to plug up one of these injectors. Okay, got the fuel injectors back in. Now we can go ahead and put them back onto the intake. Okay, that slides in nice and easy. And then there's just 3 bolts that hold this fuel rail down onto the intake. Okay, so let's go ahead and slide those in. You know, I've been pretty particular to keep the bolts organized when I take this apart, and now that I'm putting them back together here, it looks like that these are the incorrect bolts. As you can see, they're not going all the way down holding this in place. So Remember we last worked on this, didn't use the right ones, so we're gonna have to find some bolts that are a little shorter. Here's a little better angle, you can see what I'm talking about, but look at that slop in there. But I tell you, when people work on cars, half of these people shouldn't be doing it. They don't keep good inventory of stuff. We received this car with tons of missing parts. Just crazy. And right here, this is all the extra nuts and bolts that came with the car, and looks like none of those are gonna work either. Just crazy. Next order of business is to get the head on, but one of the things you'll notice here is we got a dowel pin here, but we have a missing one here. So I ended up getting a new one. This is a 5/8 inch actually, and we will need to tap it in here. I'm gonna clean up the surface of that block first. We got the surface of the block here all cleaned off, and the piston or cylinder walls cleaned up and put a little oil on them. And now I'm just gonna tap in this new head alignment pin. Okay, these alignment dowels here are not quite the right size. These are a 5/8. So I ended up cutting a little slit in here, so that should compress just a little bit, and I should be able to pop it in now. So let's give it another shot. There we go. Okay, got a brand new head gasket. So we got this surface all cleaned up. We oiled the inside of the cylinder walls here, vacuumed all the debris off, and so now we can go ahead and set our new head gasket down onto the block. I did clean up the bottom of this. It's all cleaned up. All right, we now have the head bolted down. And the head bolts, they get torqued down to 62 pound-feet. And basically you start from the inside and work your way out. So one side, the other side, then go out, and then back and forth, and so work your way outward that direction. And it's supposed to be done in 3 equal steps. So I did that pattern there with 20 pound-feet first, then 40 pound-feet, and then the 62 pound-feet. Also, I just went ahead and put in the exhaust manifold header gasket and bolted that down. That gets bolted down to 30 pound-feet, and then installed the heat shield. So now we can go move on to the other side, on the intake side, and start installing that. Now before I put any more components on, it's real easy access to the back of the head here, so I went ahead and plugged in the cam position sensor. And next, let's go ahead and reattach the coolant hose to the cylinder head. All right, I've cleaned out these channels here pretty good and got them free of debris. So let's go ahead and put in our new gasket. It's basically just one piece. And just line it up here and kind of push it in. Okay. Now, before I put the valve cover on, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on these cam lobes here. It is a remanufactured head, and there is a assembly loop on there, but these lobes look a little dry, and a little more oil can't hurt. So we'll just get a little bit on there. So for the first startup, it'll definitely have a little bit of extra lube. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do before we put the cover on is there's 6 points on here that we want to put a little bit of RTV, and it's basically where these little creases are, where these cam caps come down. There's a little gap there. All right, so before we put the cam cover on, there's 6 points where we have to put a little bit of RTV, and it's going to be where these sharp corners are, where these cam caps meet the head. And just putting a little RTV in there will make a little bit better seal. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then of course back here where the cam position sensor is 5 and 6. So let's go ahead and put a little RTV there. The other thing that I wanted to point out here before I put the valve cover on is that we have really good access to the back of the motor here. On this wiring harness, there's 3 different prongs that come out, or 3 different plugs rather. And one of them, of course, goes to the cam position sensor. This one here goes to the wiring harness that goes to the coil packs, which I don't have, and I'm gonna have to order or find one at a junkyard. And this here, I think it's an RF suppressor. There's supposed to be something to plug in here, a little capacitor, but I don't have that either, so I don't know if I'll end up using this. I think that's what it is. If not, please let me know in the comments. So anyway, for the time being, I'm just gonna tuck this back here and get it out of the way. And let's go ahead and get that valve cover on. All right, I'm gonna use some of this high heat RTV by Permatex. And just put a little bit in each of these little crevices right here. Okay, you can see here I got it spread kind of smooth in there, so it should seal up really well. Okay, let's go ahead and put the valve cover gasket on there. All right, let's go ahead and put the valve cover on there. Okay, just once again, make one final check, make sure it's well seated in here, and flip it over, and just set her straight down on there. And there we go, it feels pretty good. Now put the bolts in, there's 15 of them, and they get torqued down to 4 pound-feet. All right, just so you know, 4 pound-feet is 48 inch-pounds. So I got my inch-pound torque wrench here. And you wanna be real particular about this, because if you don't wanna just go to town on it, because it'll compress the gasket too much. And if you do it too little, obviously it's gonna leak. And you also want it very consistent. So we're just gonna start from the inside here and work our way out. And just kind of do this in little micro steps. Do this in small little steps so that it gets torqued down nice and flat and evenly. And you'll also notice as you go down on these, it'll compress the gasket, and then you'll get to your torques back here. And then by the time you go around and do the others, you'll find out that this one has loosened, or the ones that you've previously done have loosened because the gasket is compressed a little bit. So it's a good idea to go around it several times just to make sure that you got even torque distribution around the whole thing and the gasket compresses evenly all the way around. So it will take just a little bit of time to do this, but shouldn't have any leaks if you get this on nice and straight. Okay, next thing I want to put on is the intake manifold before I do any of the stuff on the front of the motor. Because as soon as I start putting stuff up here, like the timing belt cover, it's going to kind of get in the way and inhibit getting access to some of the stuff I need to get the intake manifold on. So let's focus on getting the intake manifold on next. All right, we got the oil cooler lines hooked up to the oil cooler. And now we can go ahead and put on the intake manifold gasket. And then once we get the intake on, it looks like this pipe is going to get mounted to those 2 lower bolts on the intake. All right, I went ahead and put some tape onto the intake here so we don't accidentally drop anything into the motor. If we do it at this point, it might be a little difficult to get it out. So, and then also the bottom of this, you can see right here, there's a bolt that goes into that from this bracket right here. And then this tube here is the EGR, which kind of has to wrap around the back of the motor. So we'll go ahead and try to finagle this thing in here. Okay, with the lower intake manifold on, I went ahead and routed as many wires as I could and plugged in the injectors and also a temperature sensor hidden way down in there. So now let's start putting some of the timing gear back on, and we'll start with this plate. Let's go ahead and put on the cam pulleys now. And I think this is oftentimes not emphasized enough, but there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. And see, these have been previously marked, but it doesn't really matter. These are identical pulleys, so they're interchangeable. But we'll put them back on the way they were marked. This one, they had circled the I, but each pulley has both an I and an E. And as you can see here, the little notches here for the alignment dowel, which is right here on the cams, fit into there. So the thing that's important to note here is, okay, for instance, this is the, we're gonna put in the exhaust one here first. And this little dowel here needs to be clocked or positioned so it's on the E side. So, as we put this on here, let's see, there. So you can see the little dowel there, and then it goes up to the E. If you put it on the other way, which it would fit, it would be incorrect. And the same thing over here for the intake. This is the intake side. So we got the I, and we want to make sure the dowel is on the side of the I. There we go, just like so. And then now we can go ahead and put on the bolts, and these get torqued down to 45 pound-feet. Now I got my torque wrench on here, and as you try to torque these down, it's going to spin the cam. I found the easiest way to deal with it is just put a screwdriver in here and wedge it between the pulley and one of these nuts here, or one of these bolts, and then that kind of holds it in place. And now we can go ahead and torque down on it. And there we go. Now with the bolts torqued down properly, we need to make sure that these alignment marks are positioned correctly. And you can see on the intake, there's a little notch there. I mean, these have been painted red, so they stick out, but there is actually a little notch there, and it has to line up with the notch there on the cover. And same thing with the exhaust side. And if we go down to the crank, we're gonna have to rotate this until we see there'll be a little notch cut into this sprocket here, and we'll want it to line up right with that mark right there. Okay, as I'm rotating this, I can see the mark coming up there. You can see that little notch, and right about there is where we want it. There, you can see the little notch in that, and it lines up with the little line on the block there. Okay, the trick here is going to be keeping everything lined up as we put the belt on, and make sure that the tensioner is loose here, and we'll just kind of loosely wrap the belt around these sprockets at this point. And then once we get it close, we can go ahead and kind of fine tune it. We're able to turn the crank around a couple times, and everything still lines up absolutely perfect. So we can move on to the thermostat housing. Okay, off camera, I've already cleaned this up a bit. There's a bunch of corrosion here, and there's tons of RTV here. It's like they never used a gasket. I never pulled a gasket off or anything, so they just RTV'd the heck of this up. So I cleaned that all up, and let's go ahead and take this housing apart. And we can pull the thermostat out and test it and see if it's working okay. What? Oh my God. They don't even have a thermostat in here. And again, it looks like they used a bunch of RTV here. This is crazy. You get these used cars, you never know what you're gonna find. Unbelievable. Okay, thermostat housing's all cleaned up, so now we can go find our gaskets and order a new thermostat. All right, brand new EGR. We'll go ahead and put it on. All right, we got 2 new gaskets for the thermostat housing. This is the outlet. gasket that goes right here, and of course the thermostat gasket, which goes right here, and these are the numbers if you're interested. And here's the part number for the thermostat. All right, guys, we just went ahead and drained the oil, and the bottom of the oil pan looks like this. It definitely had some water in it, so perhaps there was a busted head gasket from the previous owner. Not sure. Hopefully we won't have any issues once we get everything back together, but that definitely looks like milkshake, water in the oil. Now we're putting the timing belt cover back on before we put the thermostat housing on here. This particular cover has been broken, so I'm just kind of putting it on in parts or stages here. And of course, a lot of these bolts are missing too, so I've had to beat up a bunch of extras from my parts bin. So anyway, we're getting there. Now we can go ahead and put our thermostat housing back in. We already put a new gasket and thermostat in the housing. So now we just need to mount it to the block, and we'll use this gasket here. And then this in. Okay, let's put our hose back on. Let's plug our harness into the temperature sensor. Oh my God, it's pumping water out the back. Those copper crush rings, but I don't think that's where it's leaking. It's somewhere else. That's definitely fuel though. All right, guys, all the fuel that you saw coming out from underneath the car was basically because the return line, which is right there coming off the fuel rail, was not hooked up. And after looking around here, I don't really see a tube for that. So I'm gonna have to basically go under the car and take a look at the fuel lines, the hard lines that are coming through on the bottom side, and see where that return line comes out. It may be that we need to add an extension or another fuel line on there. I don't know. It's really difficult when you don't take the vehicle apart. There's no way to inventory it and label things and keep things organized. You just kind of have to guess. And in this particular case, you know, we're just missing a lot of parts. So anyway, a bit of a challenge. Well, I guess the only good thing at this point is the fact that we did hear it run, so the timing and everything's okay. We got spark, we got fuel, we got all that. We got all the right ingredients here to make it work. We just need to figure out all the details and fine tune it and get it back up and running. Okay, I just climbed underneath the car, found the return line, put some tape on it right there, and then I follow that line, and it looks like it's plugged into the block underneath this lower intake manifold. So that's not good. So before we go any further, it looks like we're gonna have to disassemble all this, pull it all back off, and get our line straight and figure out what goes where. Also, we have a missing coolant line that goes to the upper intake, right here on the bottom of this guy, and there's two ports right here, one here and one here that goes to the throttle body, and we were missing one. So I'm thinking that the line that return fuel line is plugged into probably goes to right here. So anyway, we're gonna have to disassemble this and then figure out what the heck's going on here. All right, I have to be honest, this isn't real easy. Had to disconnect the fuel line, gas goes everywhere, it stinks in here. Had to take off the heat shield so I could get access to the EGR, where it hooks up right there, because the pipe connects to the lower intake there, and kind of difficult to get off from the bottom. So anyway, I got it maneuvered out here enough to access the block where that return line goes in. And you can see there's our return line that should be hooked up to the fuel rail. And basically the only reason that's hooked up there is because that's how it was when I took it apart. The previous owner worked on this motor and I think just kind of haphazardly hooked things back together and didn't bolt anything down, a lot of missing parts. So anyway, this just goes to show you, if somebody's been in there messing with it, you can't trust them on putting things together back properly. So double check everything. And this is definitely a line that's coming from the fuel tank. That's the return that needs to hook to the return line on that fuel rail. So we'll pull that out, and this might solve one of our other problems because we were having difficulty figuring out what lines from the oil cooler go to the intake, and we were missing one. Well, there's our extra line, I think. So anyway, I'll try to get this sorted out, and I'll let you know what I find. Okay, I got this hose pretty much loosened up, so let's just pull her off now. There we go. So yeah, there's our return line. So now I basically need to figure out what does go here and where does it go. And I'm kind of thinking that this hose may go here. So after thinking long and hard about this, this line here, I believe, goes up to the throttle body. And then from the throttle body, there'll be another line that this hooks, well, the throttle body will hook to this. And then I believe we can go from here directly into the block. I think that would make a complete loop, and that should work. So basically, I need to unhook this guy here, and then find another hose that I can bridge the gap from here to the block. Just picked up a new hose at the auto parts store. So now I can hook up the block to the oil cooler. I have the new hose in here. So it's coming out of the block, going into the oil cooler here. Out of the oil cooler, this will go up to the throttle body. And then this hose should also go to the throttle body. So the coolant should come out here, go up to the throttle body, then back down through here, through the oil cooler, and then back into the block. Okay, after much more finagling around, we got the hose on top now that was connected to the block. This is gonna go to the throttle body. And then we got that extra hose that we added from the block over to the oil cooler down there. Or coming out of the oil cooler up through here. So the way that it should work is the coolant should be fed into the throttle body here, come back down through here, go through the oil cooler, and then into the block. Now, this is the return fuel line that we did have hooked to the block. Obviously, that's just going to plug right into here. In fact, I might actually hook that up before I secure this lower intake manifold. Everything's very tight in here. I can tell that this thing slides on a lot easier now that everything's where it belongs. I guess that's one indication that things aren't right when you have to struggle getting something on. But it's still very difficult access, especially for the bottom bolts of this lower intake manifold. As you can see, you gotta use some of these swivel sockets here to get access, good access to torque those bolts on. So anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll start hooking up the rest of the hoses. Now, it's very easy to drop the bolts when you're trying to get them threaded on here. So I'm using this magnetic head, and I put the bolt on, then I don't have to worry about dropping it, and then I can just kind of push it through there and get it on. This particular set that I'm using is from Sonic. I highly recommend it if you're working in tight places and worried about dropping the nuts. All right, guys, got it all buttoned back up. Everything's connected. I don't believe there's any connectors that aren't hooked up or any hoses. So, with the exception of the belts that drive the alternator, the AC compressor, and I don't know, is there power, or the fan also. Yep, that, oh, I still need to get a heat shield on as well. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done. So, we'll see. We'll try to fire it up here in a bit and see what happens. Well, I just pumped up the pressure on the coolant system. It looks like we have a leak here from the thermostat housing. You can see the pressure slowly bleeding off there. And I definitely hear it. And I can see it actually dripping a little bit of water right down there. So we have a problem right there. Okay, you ready? Yeah, ready as I'll ever be. It isn't though. Okay, I'm by myself and I'm gonna try starting it again. So what I did was I turned the crank using this breaker bar here to the point where there's no compression on any of the cylinders at this point. So hopefully the starter, which is very weak, will have enough power to get the thing turning, and hopefully we can get this thing cranked over. And and I'm still afraid that there'd be water coming out of the tailpipe. So what I'm gonna do is just position this bucket right here, and then hopefully if any more water comes out, go into the bucket, and then we'll have a big mess to clean up. So let's go ahead and reconnect this battery, and we'll give it another go. All right, let's try starting it one more time. No luck. Absolutely no luck there. All right, guys, as you can see, the vehicle is not starting. I think we have a starter problem. So I think I'm gonna call it quits here for this video. And I have made the decision not to work on this car anymore. This is actually my son's car, so I'm gonna let him take over at this point. However, I will keep you updated as to the progress on this car. And at this time, I gotta turn my attention over to the Cobra. It's been, we've been driving it around for a little while, and it just developed a bad tick that we need to investigate. It's probably a lash adjuster and a cam follower. So I'm gonna resume my work on this car for the time being. And I'm gonna give up on this one, but I will keep you posted. So anyway, I'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.